Hello chaps and welcome to another episode of The Rogue Admiral. Today we're talking about that great nation, Bajor, and its beautiful, beautiful people, especially the women. Now let's start where I like to start every time, the last episode of Deep Space Nine. And where is Bajor? Previously, before the events of Deep Space Nine began, Bajor had a 70-year-long occupation by the hated and dreaded Cardassians. And the Cardassians may have entered Bajor with good intentions, but however, one thing had led to another, and that occupation was going badly for everyone. The Cardassians made huge mistakes. The Bajorans themselves made huge mistakes. And we're in a situation where the Bajoran people are crushed, downtrodden, enslaved, and oppressed. Deep Space Nine begins on the day that the Cardassian occupation is lifted and that Gul Dukat is forced to withdraw from Bajor against his own will and against his own judgment. A great shame day for Cardassia. So the Bajoran people are on that day free and liberated, but traumatized by the occupation, personally scarred by it. Each one has a story of horror that they pass on amongst themselves and to every outsider who visits them. They do find the wormhole, which they believe to be the celestial temple of their gods, and they find a prophet in the form of Ben Sisko. And they find aid in the form of the hand that is outreached by the Federation to say we're willing to help you. And at this point, Bajor definitely needs the Federation. The regional power that is Cardassia could return at any minute. Cardassia has a fleet. Cardassia has a prepped and successful military. Cardassia has competent commanders. The reoccupation of Bajor would not be too hard for the Cardassians to relaunch within a few months. 6 months to a year, they could relaunch, reoccupy that country. The Bajorans would have been tearful and downtrodden for another 100 years. However, the Federation presence has a little bit of a buffer against that. The Cardassians have to think twice. So Bajor is in a relatively good place to be. They're free, they're independent, they found a beneficent ally, they found the temple to their gods, and opportunities beyond that wormhole. It's a good place to be. However, the Dominion War happens, calamity ensues. Bajor is requested to remain neutral to prevent its own occupation and its own devastation by the Dominion forces and the Cardassians again. So neutral Bajor, by the time Deep Space Nine finishes in that final episode, finds itself a once oppressed and occupied, scarred people, now at the victor's table, where their oppressors have been defeated, genocided, and ultimately destroyed and cast to the dust of history. A great galactic nation, the Dominion, has been expelled from the Alpha Quadrant through their own wormhole, which they control. They're in a very, very good position. They control trade to the Gamma Quadrant. The enemies of the Cardassians have been annihilated. They've been propped up by the wealth of the Federation. They're looking in a good position. There's two places this can go. Now I want to address the fanboy theory like I like to, and the fanboy theory is after Deep Space Nine, Bajor will be welcomed with open arms into the loving care of the Federation. And this is a very good and a very plausible theory. But this theory rests on the basis of who is in command of Bajor at the time. What we know is that the Kai is dead. So there will be an election for a new Bajoran Pope, Bajoran Kai, and it depends who this leader will be. This leader could either be soft and want the easy road, and the easy road for Bajor would be Federation membership. Easy, done. You don't have any problems anymore. You don't have to worry about it. On the flip side, the new Kai could be someone who is A, traumatized by the Cardassian occupation, B, enlightened by the prophets in the wormhole, and C, elated by the defeat of the Cardassians. And in the second season of Deep Space Nine, the Bajorans were quite keen to form a colony on the other side of the wormhole, which was later annihilated by the Dominion. An unsuccessful colony, it happens, never mind. Each colonial power rolls a dice. But it shows the will for Bajor to be a colonial power. And what you will see is that the Cardassian Union has collapsed around them, and these planets are in disarray. Very, very open for the possibility of Bajoran colonists. Bajor has the opportunity, given the right leadership, given someone with a bit of will, given someone with a bit of strength and a little bit of will to roll the dice, to usurp the Cardassian Union. You know, Bajor has basically little to no military, but that space is open for the grabs. If they put their people on there, they could occupy the former Marquis colonies, which are now empty. They could be Bajoran colonies within an instant, within a day, within a month. As soon as you go there, all you have to do is plant that Bajoran flag, a few wrinkled noses on the ground, and that territory, the Marquis country, is now yours. You can do that to the moons and the planets and the space stations that have been abandoned by the Cardassians. In an instant almost, with a bit of initiative, Bajor could be the new Cardassian Union. We'll call it the Bajoran Union. And that looks like a very happy, rosy future for Bajor, especially with the Federation as a willing ally. The usurpation of the Cardassian Union by the Bajorans would not bat an eye with the Federation. The Federation has their hand in the pockets of Bajor, so their hand's in that pie. It's all good and rosy. However, there is one enemy, one final enemy left, which could upset this entire plan. And I think that if we had a strong, expansionist, independent Bajoran Kai who wanted to usurp the Cardassian Union, I think it would happen. However, in my previous video, I've always said that the Cardassians themselves would not surrender easily and would have their own resurgence. The collision between the powers of the resurgent Cardassians and the Bajoran Union would be absolutely 100% inevitable, and there would be a war. And in my personal opinion, I think Bajor would lose that war. The Cardassians still have their fleet, they're very determined, their military is experienced, they hate the Bajorans, and they will not see themselves become a Bajoran colony. I don't think that Bajor would ever attempt to colonize or conquer Cardassia, but the Cardassians would fear it, and they would fear it above everything else. A Bajoran occupation, even the favorite one, would terrify the Cardassians so much, but it would inspire them to fight on harder and stronger. And the Cardassians also believe that territory, the Bajoran Union, is theirs, the Cardassian Union after all. So they would fight extra hard, and the inexperienced Bajoran military would be smashed and pushed back. They couldn't fight the guerrilla tactics of old like they did during the occupation. This is a war between one nation and another, military powers. Now, I don't think the Cardassians would have an absolute victory should this war take place, but I think they would have a decisive victory, pushing the Bajorans back, possibly to their own homeworld, at least knocking the confidence out their dream to become the Bajoran solidified union. At this point, with Bajor losing a war, not absolutely but decisively, Bajor would have lost its confidence, and it would turn to its one true friend who's always been there, who's always been keen, with its arms and teeth ready to swallow it up, the United Federation of Planets. So I would have to, in my headcanon, in my fan theory, agree with the fanboys that Bajor ultimately would become a Federation colony. One way or the other, either A, by immediately just dropping their pants, bending over and taking it up the bum off the Federation on day one after the Dominion War, or several years later after they've tried their best at assertion and being pushed back and repelled by the Cardassians and then frightened into the arms of the Federation then. That is my fan theory and headcanon on the Bajorans. I love the Bajorans. I think they're absolutely fantastic, their women are absolutely beautiful. All the Cardassians have Bajoran fever, and no matter what the political game Bajor would play in the future post Deep Space Nine, the Bajoran girls would have their OnlyFans pages. They would make a cultural name for Bajor on that kind of sex market industry. Definitely. But anyway, that's just me rambling on. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for making it through to the end. I know I ramble on a bit, but what can you do? Anyway, ciao for now.